I'd like to continue talking about the six harmonies. I've been pondering these quite a bit the past few days. I've covered the first three. These are the six harmonies that the Buddha taught over 2,500 years ago to his Sangha communities in order to help them to transform their minds, by extension to really transform and influence the society as a whole that they were living in, with the ultimate goal of liberation from cyclic existence. So on one hand, to think about the six harmonies as being something with a vast, vast sort of, I don't want to say goal, but motivation or aspiration, and at the same time seeing them how very practical and very reasonable and how helpful they are in everyday life. I also spoke about the idea that as people who come from a really individualistic kind of notion in our culture, that living in community, much less living in a monastic community, really requires quite a bit of a, at least it did for me, quite a bit of a shift on my focus. And by sort of shifting my focus from how does the way that I live benefit me to something bigger beyond that, is how does the way that I behave and the way I practice and the way that I live in the world actually benefit and really help support other people in their own spiritual growth. And so we covered the first three harmonies, which were the physical harmony, the verbal harmony, and the mental harmony, really thinking pretty much about the 10 non-virtuous actions of body, speech, and mind. And then the next three that are listed are a little bit more, I see them as the Buddha trying to be a little bit more specific with his Sangha communities, in that they are the harmony of precepts, the harmony of views, and the harmony in welfare. So the fourth one is the harmony of precepts, which are really, and we've been talking about this quite a bit today in our group discussion and teachings, is that the precepts are really about helping us work with our minds. They help train our minds to look inside and to refrain from doing, and Venerable has said this on a number of occasions over the years, is that they help us to do what we've already decided that we want to do. And I think Alicia pointed this out this morning in our group discussion, to be able to refrain from doing what we've already decided to do by taking the precepts. So they're kind of a reassurance, a reminder, a refocus of what our original intention was when we took them, whether they're the 5 lay precepts, which we can take whether we're living at the Abbey or we're living at home or going to work or being in school, is that really watching our body and our speech and how we move in the world is really quite helpful, in that if we can remember that, it really helps us not be so confused. You know, because all these situations that come up in our life where we have to make a decision on whether to do something with a group or do something by ourselves or not, having the precepts as already there, something we've chosen to do, for me, always kind of put down a lot of confusion on what I was supposed to choose at that one given moment. What I've had to do, so they were really kind of they're very strong protection for my mind, which tended to waffle and go with the flow. You know, whatever group I was in, whatever we were doing, I was very easily influenced by pressure or the excitement of it, or wanting to fit in or wanting to be liked. And so starting out with the 5 lay precepts, I really held them as a form of protection and for me to really be clear on what it was that I wanted to do. But I did have to move through a lot of my Christian theistic upbringing that said that they were like commandments, that they were opposed from some sort of external structure, that I had to do them, that I should do them, and that I really spent a number of years, and I still find it arising every once in a while with the more difficult ones for myself, is that I see them as some sort of imposition, and there's a little bit of resistance. But to be able to see the precepts as spurring me on to grow rather than confining me. They also they guide us to maintain a simple lifestyle, so that we actually open up the time in our life for practice and for study, rather than our lives being really busy with trying to figure out what we want to do and just go here and get pulled there, whatever our attachment or whatever our aversion, whatever our jealousy is pulling us towards, that the precepts really simplify things. And then we get to choose about what we're going to do with the time that comes in our lives because we've got it so kind of cleared out and simplified. It takes a while to see the precepts as helping because they begin to free our minds from the constant craving of samsara. And as the longer I stay in my precepts, I really see them as a very strong antidote to the craving mind that comes up inevitably wherever we live. Even with the type of life that we have here at the Abbey, the self-centered thought, the craving mind is going to find things that it's going to try to hook me into. And so rather than see it as a protection and as a way to train my mind and to sort of release it from this constant craving, rather than seeing it cramping my style. You know, being an individual, being a unique person, there's this propensity in my mind that I don't want my style to be cramped. I want to be able to express myself. I want to be able to create. I want to be able to be authentic and unique. And as I said the last time, to be careful not to think that the precepts are somehow contradictory for me learning to be able to be authentic and unique and to grow. They're not contradictory. In fact, they've really helped me to clarify the uniqueness that I have on how I integrate them and how I hold them and how I express them in my life. They also help to increase our awareness, to calm us down so that we're not so reactive, and to give us very clear parameters on what's most helpful on not only benefiting ourselves but benefiting others. And this is really quite a process of growing into. You know, from the 5 lay precepts here at the Abbey, then we have the 8 precepts. Then we've got novice precepts, which increases the numbers. We've got bodhisattva, ethical restraints. We've got the fully ordained precepts. There's kind of this growing into precepts the more comfortable we are, acknowledging and becoming aware of the freedom they actually grant us. Because for me, first and foremost, they dispel my confusion on what to do. The second one, the 5th one, is harmony in views. And for us here at the Abbey, it's one of the views we have to share is that we're all Buddhists. If you're going to live here at the Abbey and be a resident, you really have had to take on saying that I am a Buddhist, I'm going to follow the Buddhist teachings. People who come here and visit, a lot of them aren't Buddhists. They're here just to explore, just to visit with us and to sort of find out what we do here. But if you're going to be a resident in the community here, you really do have to be practicing the Buddhist teachings. It doesn't mean that we all have to agree, you know, where to put the lights, where to put the garbage, what color to make the building, you know, who's going to take down the water bowls, where is the dirt going to go. I mean, it's harmony in views only means what the fundamental teachings of the Buddha, how we all agree that those are the things that are going to really direct our lives. We have a huge amount of disagreement on how things are done on the worldly conventional level, and we have millions of opinions. So harmony of views relates to the fundamental of what all of those different opinions on the rest of the world that we whether it's the dirt or the cleaning and things like that. If we have the harmony of view that we're going to disagree with an understanding that that's absolutely fine, that we're allowed to disagree, that there's a kindness, there's an understanding, there's a wanting to listen, a need to understand, then we have that similarity and harmony of view. A lot of whatever we disagree with on sort of the conventional level on a daily basis kind of comes and goes. We agree, we disagree, and everything works out in the end. So they're not in opposition to each other once again. But we do have similar views in the teachings, although our level of understanding may vary. We study the same texts and the same commentaries. We have the same practice for the most part. Some of us have got individual commitments and such. And that's a huge piece, because if we don't agree on a particular worldview, when it comes down to the real deep issues of what really sustains the community, there's going to be a conflict. We really agree on the view that everything is interdependent. We believe that, you know, as best as we can to cultivate the bodhicitta motivation, that our whole purpose in life is to eventually become awakened for the benefit of others. Social outreach is a harmony of view here at the community. A balanced structural living, critical investigation is a very strong harmony of view that we have here at the Abbey. And that the Buddha is our fundamental teacher. And then lastly, the harmony in welfare, which is how we share in the resources that are offered in the community. There's lots of ways we share. We each have a few things of our own, but everything else, because it comes in due to the kindness of others, is considered to be community property. We learn one of our harmonies in welfare is that we try to reuse, recycle, and repair as much of the things that we have here before we finally just let them go. The idea of using only what we need to maintain the 4 requisites, that's a shared harmony in welfare. We work on our preferences, once again, to make sure that everything is shared. We use our money for 3 things. We use it for offerings, we use it to travel, and we use it for our health insurance needs. Harmony in welfare, we conserve energy on all aspects, whether it's driving the car, heating and water, cooling, caring for things. And I think that these 6 harmonies on a lot of levels can be adapted to just about whatever community you are part of, whether it is your family community, whether it's your work community, your school community, your social community, that they don't just work for monastics, and that they help us to create, as the Abbey slogan is, to create peace in a chaotic world. And we start with sort of helping to create peace in our own chaotic internal world, and by extension, that, you know, the analogy of throwing the little pebble into the very large pond, that those ripples do extend beyond, I think, sometimes what we're even aware of. And that as long as we sincerely practice the Dharma, I think that creating peace in a chaotic world will probably ring true, certainly in an internal way, and hopefully in an external way. So as time goes on, as we live in community here at the Abbey, I have seen that the 6 harmonies have worked to not only grow the community, but to also grow the individuals. So if the final conclusion that I've come to from this contemplation is that maintaining individuality and growing a community are not contradictory. In fact, they are crucial components, and that harmony is a crucial piece that makes them work and fit together, and for the long-term benefit of every living being.